Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sandra Scherfrer. I'm the president of the Democratic Women Club of Greater Broward. And this afternoon, I have the pleasure of interviewing Elijah Manley. He's a candidate for Florida State Representative District 94. Is that right, Elijah? So we're gonna, your election is also August 18th, 2020?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so August 18, 2020, he's part of the primary process, and we're encouraging everyone to request their vote by mail ballots. Those of you who've done that already, they're starting to come in. And I know you're making some decisions about who it is that you want to vote for. So that's one of the reasons why I'm bringing in the candidates so they can talk to you, so you can hear more of their well-developed platforms and what it is that they want to do for the residents of Broward County. Elijah's interviews today, I've done a few already. I've been doing this for the past 6 or 7 weeks. So you can go on the page. If there's somebody you want to see, maybe I interview them and you can go and get like at least anywhere from 45 minutes to a full hour of what it is that they're here to do. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to give Elijah Manley an opportunity to introduce himself. And then the next part of what he's going to answer is why he decided to run for this particular seat.
Absolutely. Well, you want me to start now?
Yes, absolutely. This is you.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Perfect. Yeah. So again, my name is Elijah Manley. I'm a 21-year-old running for Florida State Representative in House District 94, which consists of Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, parts of Oakland Park, parts of Lauderhill, and Eastern Plantation. And I am running for state representative because I do believe right now, in this unprecedented time in our nation's history, that we need bold new leadership in our country to move this country forward. We're facing so many issues, a crisis right now, with a global pandemic. And as someone who's studying both history and public health, it is an unfortunate situation, but it is one of the biggest things to study at this point in time. But we're facing other crises too. We're facing a crisis with affordable housing, with climate change, with healthcare, with jobs and employment, with living wages. Everything just ties in right now. And we need new leadership in Tallahassee who's going to fight for this district, who's going to be a bold voice, who isn't going to give up. So that's a little bit about me.
All right, that's a lot about you. You said a mouthful, so we got a whole lot of things we're going to talk about. So what's front of mind right now is this whole COVID situation, right? And, like we were doing well, like we weren't making the news about like what was happening. And then all of a sudden, we thought the numbers were going down because they opened up some places. I thought it was too soon to open up the beaches and all that. But, we had a governor who made a decision to do that. And now all of a sudden, we're breaking records. We have more cases than New York had on its worst date, right? So what would you attribute that to? What would you attribute that to? And what do you think you could do, or what you would do differently if you're elected to be a member of the state house?
Yeah, first thing I attribute it to the lightning fast speed of Governor Ron DeSantis in reopening the state. This is something people got to understand. This is from the White House down. Reopening of this country, when the science is clear that we shouldn't be reopening right now. We should be waiting. We should be practicing social distancing, wearing masks, and not sending our kids back into these facilities, into schools to get sick and be vectors of this disease. So we are already entering these different phases of reopening when we should really just be waiting a while and seeing how this is. And that directly correlates with the spiking cases we're seeing here in Florida, where we're going up with Arizona in the amount of cases that are in deaths that are going up. And this because we currently have an administration running our state that does not understand science, that does not care about what the science, the facts, and the data is saying. They only care about, I don't know, winning an election or doing whatever President Trump says. But people understand that President Trump is not a scientist. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not an expert. He only cares about himself and his reelection prospects, but not really about the people of Florida. As far as what I can do from the state house, there are a number of things. I think the first thing we have to do is look at the economics of the situation. We currently have a lot of people who are unemployed right now who don't have access to that pay that they would usually have access to. And we have a broken unemployment system. And I think one of the things we need to have in a state representative at this current point in time is someone who's going to work at fixing our broken unemployment system, holding the state accountable to make sure people get their money. There are people in this district who I speak to every day who, ask me, I need help getting my unemployment benefits. I've been waiting 2-3 months to get my unemployment benefits. They still haven't been able to get those. So it's a lot that's going on, but we have to be willing to talk about those issues and we need a representative who's going to hold them to account in Tallahassee.
All right. So we're going to talk about a lot of it. So let me just try to do this in like bite-sized pieces. The last point you left upon was the unemployment, and that's a real situation, and it's one that people didn't anticipate, particularly this way, right? March happened. They said they were going to shut it down. I mean, most of us figured like maybe at most we'd be closed for like 2 months, and then it'll get back together. I mean, that might have been the case if everyone did everything right. Here we go. We're like, what, 4 months deep into this, and it doesn't seem any light at the end of the tunnel. And for the person that's waiting for unemployment benefits, what is it that you could have done, or the person that represents your district could have done to make that process smoother for folks? Or is it really beyond the scope of any Democrat? Is that something that the Democrats just can't do?
I don't think it's a lot the caucus itself can do to fix this. I think this is really something the Republican caucus, as well as the governor, needs to show leadership on. They could have fixed this problem a long time ago when Governor Rick Scott was in power, when they did what they did with the unemployment system.
I think he did it on purpose, though, right?
It was designed to fail from the start. Mm-hmm. And they really didn't think that we would have something like this occurring in the year 2020 to really showcase the incompetence and negligence of this administration up in Tallahassee to address this issue. So I don't think there's a lot any individual member of the House or the Senate can do, except try to streamline and speed up those operations for people in their district, reaching out to people who are in their district, getting them the help they need by reaching and connecting with the DEO, or the Department of Employment Opportunity, and trying to get those benefits. A representative does have some weight, so contacting the DEO on behalf of the constituents can be a real big help in speeding that up. Although I'm not a representative, I have done that myself. I have reached out to the DEO on behalf of people in the district, voters that I've met while campaigning, who said, hey, Elijah, I might vote for you, I might not, but I'm having a problem with unemployment, getting my unemployment benefits. I don't have anybody here to help me. I can't afford a lawyer. I can't do anything. And I said, okay, well, I reached out to a lawyer and I tried my hardest to get those people their benefits. I don't know if it really worked, but I do know those are the small things that representatives can do when they're elected and when they're in the House right now. But it's beyond any Democrat at this point. It just takes the Republicans really listening and trying to fix the problem.
But the more Democrats we get in office, the better shot we have at this actually working out for itself, right?
I
more
think
Democrats we get elected. So you just use like an alphabet. You use the letter DEO. For those of us or those in the audience that don't know exactly what that means and that may be having the same struggle, can you like tell them what that is and then how they can contact them to maybe give them some information on how they can try to get their benefits?
Yes, absolutely. So the DEO is the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, and they pretty much run the unemployment system through their Connect system, where people apply for their unemployment benefits. It's not really a working system. We already know how that operates, and getting in contact with them is very difficult, as we know. Calling their office, sometimes you're waiting 3, 4, 5, 6 hours and you don't really get too much of a response or too much help. So I mean, I can tell you emailing them, but reaching out to your representatives does help. They might not be able to solve the issue because they don't run the department, but they can help out in that situation by reaching out to the department officials and writing letters on your behalf and doing so much. They're here to serve you. They're your public servants. And if they're not doing that, vote them out. But reach out to your state representatives, your state senators, and ask them to help you get your benefits, and they should.
Right. And so at least you won't be on the phone for like 4, 5, 6 hours waiting, right? So at least if they can at least cut that time in half or, get rid of it, that's definitely something that should be considered. Okay. So, we're going to stay on this COVID thing just a little bit longer. One of the things that's happening is that there's a group, there's a push. Some people want to send their children back to school. Even you laugh. Why are you laughing? Right?
I don't even know what to say. I mean, there's a lot of mixed emotion here with what we're trying to do. I mean, I come from a education activist background where I've just been fighting for education for a long time, public education. And really, I'll just say this. I know why the Republicans are doing what they're doing. Some Democrats might not agree, but they're doing this because they don't like or support public education. That's the only reason why. They wouldn't be rushing to send their kids to those private schools, private schools back. A lot of the private schools, surprisingly, are not opening back up in the fall because they know something that the scientists are saying is actually the case. So it's just astounding. That's to say the least of it.
You know, I mean, yeah, so send the kids back to school. You have to close down anyway. I mean, I still just I don't get it. So is that like in support of, because my son, I have 2 children, they're twins, and one goes to public school and one goes to a charter school. And the charter school basically gave us an option. They were trying to come up with a plan on how they can go back. I don't know if they're still following this plan on how they can go back, but I had already elected that, they're going to be online. I have a daughter that's ESC. She was one of the ones that they wanted to have go to school 5 days a week. I was like, y'all gonna have to help me figure out how that's not gonna happen, because I wasn't comfortable with sending her back to school like 5 days a week. So is there anything that representatives can do to help with this this decision on should we open, should we not open, or you guys can just go and try to get teachers more money to make the whole thing a little bit better or something?
I mean, it's complicated because there's several sides to this. There's several understandings. I mean, the first thing, and I was listening to a pediatric expert talk about this, and I'm not saying I agree with him or not on this, but I do think one of the things he said that was actually factual is that all students are different. And you do have students who are exceptional student education, kids on the autism spectrum, kids who need that specialized education. They need that in-person education because it might just be harder to do online. So how do we balance? The question a lot of the policymakers are failing to ask is, how do we actually balance getting those students the tools that they need to get that education and keeping them safe at the same time? And there's a lot of proposals. One of the proposals people have spoken about already is a really slow schedule of opening, where you have a schedule where some kids go to school 2 days out of the week, which is something Broward County was thinking about doing, where you have half the school go for 2 days, the other half go, or about a third go for 2 days, another third go for 2 days, or something like that. It's really hard to understand. I think personally, I'll tell you what I think. I think we should wait. And we should probably wait until sometime in October, November to send those kids back when we know it's safe, when the science says it's safe. It's definitely hard to understand. But the other part of this is budget. We lost a lot of revenue, which means about 25% of the money that's coming into our school districts per pupil funding is pretty much gone because people aren't working. We don't have the money to collect the tax. So it's a lot of revenue that isn't in the school district budgets to go to our schools to keep them open and keep them operating. So this is why we should have had a special session back in May. We shouldn't have closed the session out in March, in my opinion. We should have kept our representatives up through March, April, May, as long as it took to deal with this. But they wanted to come back so they can run for re-election. So it's a whole issue, but we should have had that special election. And I think we still should have that special election before school opens so we can come up with solutions to address this.
Yeah, because something has to give, right? I mean, something definitely has to give. I know some of the colleges and universities, they've decided that they're just not even going to try to go back. I'm a college professor, and I've been working from home since March. I just found out in the fall I'm gonna still be working from home. They're like, yeah, no, you're not coming back into our building. We're only letting maybe 10% of the people back in. That's because they have majors where they kind of need to do some things hands-on. But if it's not one of those hands-on majors, they're like, yeah, don't even think about coming on this campus or whatever, right? It's a different dynamic, but I mean, these are adults that they don't trust going back into buildings, right? Because they're afraid of what's going to happen with COVID. And just the thought of just letting little children go back in, particularly elementary school age children who haven't seen their friends since March, right? And there was no build up to it. It was just one day, it's like, nope, you're not coming back, right? So that's a very, to me, it's a hard sell. I just don't know how you'd be able to really keep them to like social distancing without creating like some big problem. So I definitely agree with you that some more needs to be known, and like they need to have something else in place to kind of figure out how all of this is going to work. But we'll definitely see how that plays out. So you said a mouthful. You talked about affordable health care, right? So as a state rep, what is it that you can do to bring affordable health care to your district?
Right. So, I mean, healthcare, we know healthcare is the biggest thing that's facing the state outside of employment.
It's huge.
People don't. And the reason why that is because healthcare is tied to employment. So when people are laid off, people are fired from their jobs, they can't go back. They lose their health care. This is the argument for why we
should. Had it in the first place. If they even had it in the first place, right? Because a lot of people have jobs where they don't have it. I could think of one of the big companies that they make sure all of their employees work under 30 hours a week so they don't have to provide them with health care. The other thing they do is they contract out everything, and so they have subcontractors working in the stores so they don't have to provide health care, right? So yeah, so it's tied to employment, but there's a lot of people have jobs and they work every day, and some of them work 2 different jobs, and neither one of those agencies provide health insurance for them.
Right. So it's a lot of loopholes we need to tackle, and those are some of the most important ones that I've been looking at. Is specifically with contract work, with these companies, instead of hiring employees, they're sending out the contract so they don't have to pay for health insurance. It's a sad indictment of our entire system. It's why I support healthcare for all, guaranteed to all people as a human right. Nationally through a Medicare for all system. But what I can do as a state representative is I support expanding Medicaid. This is so very important. A lot of people say the word expanding Medicaid, but they don't actually have plans on how to do it. I actually have a plan on how we're going to expand Medicaid for people. I think we should expand it to all people. And the way we do that is we look at different models from states and countries across the world. But right here in our own country, in Massachusetts, we have what they call Mass Health. Mm-hmm. And I've been talking about, hey, how about we do this? How about we take that model and we combine our Medicaid and our children's health insurance program in Florida, the Kid Care, into one program. And then we come up with other programs with what I call a Medicare for Florida plan, where we expand this to all people. Yeah, because it's not national, we can't force it on people. So we have to give them that choice to get in, unfortunately. So we give them the choice to opt into that plan if they want, but they'll be able to get that insurance if they want. And we have it, and this is another big part to this is it should include dental, it should include vision, it should include hearing, it should include all of those things. Right now, it's so hard to go to a dentist. I've been trying to go for a while, over a year, and I still haven't had that success. I was in the waiting line and I was getting close to get to the top of the list, and then the COVID hit, and then it was like, no way, no way, Jose.
So can I tell you a dental story? Okay, so my mother is like in her 70s and she has like Medicare, right? And in her Medicare, we got like a dental plan as part of it. And so she started, she's getting older, started getting the issues with her gums and all of that kind of stuff. And they basically was like, yeah, we're gonna have to take out most of these teeth, right? In order for them, and then probably do like dentures and that type of stuff, right? So then we go to the health clinic. I don't want to call the name, but one of the state health clinics in Miami. She lives in Miami. And it was like, yeah, so the way the insurance work is that we take out one tooth at a time, right? And I think they do like one a month or something. And I'm like, so you're going to be taking out one tooth a month. That's going to probably take like 2 years to get all of these teeth out of her mouth. And then you're going to build dentures? Like, that was so, I couldn't even believe that guy said that with a straight face, and the dentist came and he said, do you want to schedule an appointment? I'm like, no, we don't want to schedule an appointment. You're talking about taking out one tooth a month. This is going to take 2 years. Like, are you kidding? Like, that can't happen, right? So luckily, she has adult children. And, my mother is pretty savvy. So, we had to go to a private dentist and, figure it out. And they were able to save some and not all. And she got and they made them to look like her teeth. Because that's the other thing, too. Like, even if when you do get to the point, if you willing to wait 2 months, 2 years to get all your teeth taken out, they're going to just give you these generic looking dentures that kind of don't look like nobody's teeth for real, So she was able to do that, but not everybody can have that story. And I completely agree with you in that, and just having that experience, I completely agree with you that they really need to do something about like dental insurance and what it is that it covers. And even when you work for a company and you have dental insurance, they max you out at $1,500 a year in terms of like what it is that you can do. So unless you were taking care of your teeth since you were a kid, then that will work for you. But if like a lot of us who had parents that just didn't understand that you needed to go twice a year and you have a lot of, damage to your mouth, again, it'll take you another 3-4 years to get your mouth right.
Right. I mean, I got my bill when I went in for a simple visit, and I got the bill for my teeth, and it was like almost $3,000. And the biggest issue, I mean, I feel like I'm gonna need the dentures in a few, but I feel like the biggest issue with the way the healthcare system or dental is the biggest issue, but there are other things like blood thinners for people, prescription drugs that I want to save people cost on as much as possible, is that our in our state, our Medicare and Medicaid plans are privatized, which is unfortunate. In a lot of places, they have strong public programs available for people, so if they get their Medicare and Medicaid, it's ran through the state. Unfortunately, our state contracts that out to private entities, like, for example, Sunshine Health for like Medicaid, which is what I have pretty much. Or for dental care, I forget the name of the exact place, the exact company, but that's who I had for the company. And these private companies are essentially, because they aren't making much off of these things. For example, when we go to the doctor and you have Blue Cross Blue Shield or something, you're going to have a really high premium that you probably can't afford, but you'll probably be seen a lot faster. Sometime with Medicare and Medicaid in Florida, when you go to the doctor, they put you at the end of the list, unfortunately, because they're not making anything off of that. And everyone knows this. Everyone knows it's horrible, and that we need people in Tallahassee who's going to fix that. I think by investing in a really strong public system where we don't contract these out to these companies would be a really good idea. Going back to combining both CHIP and Medicaid would be really smart too. But we don't really have people thinking about this. We have people saying the word suspend Medicaid and they don't really mean it. And then we have Republicans trying to get rid of and cut Medicaid.
And you said another thing, CHIP. What does that mean? Just for, those who don't understand what that is.
So CHIP is the Children's Health Insurance Program in the state of Florida. It's for low-income children. It's called Kid Care. And one of the things is because they won't, it's the same with Medicaid, because they won't take the federal funding, we can't expand the program. And then they also have income limits. So if you're like $1 over the income limit, it's just the same with food stamps or anything else. You're $1 over the limit, you get excluded. So you can't get the health insurance, or you can't get the food stamps because of that. So people end up getting left out because they don't have their $1 or $500. They make $500 more, or it's the same. It's just we should have some wiggle room for people around in that.
Yeah, definitely. Because I have we were talking about ESC students. Like I have a daughter. She's on the autism spectrum, right? And and I remember people like, oh yeah, you can apply for like Social Security benefits or something like that for her. But like if you have a certain amount of income, you can't get that, right? And then some of the services that she need, they didn't even want to take private insurance. They're like, no, we don't want private insurance. They wanted like, there's like, well, does she have some Title 21 or Title 20? Some things I'm not really sure they were, but they were asking about these things. I'm like, no, she doesn't have that. There's like, oh no, that we can't help you. So it's like it's also weird, low income families, there's certain services that they want, but then you also have people who kind of fall in the middle, like you're not poor enough, but then you don't have enough money to pay for it, like on a private side of anything, right? So and that's like the man in the White House said something about he was gonna do some stuff for the people in the middle class or whatever, and I don't even know like if it's really middle class, or it's just that a lot of times there's a group of people that's stuck in the middle, in the sense again that they're not poor enough, but definitely not wealthy enough to be able to private pay for all of the services that they need. So if you have people like that in your area, what is it that you can do to kind of, bring them some sort of relief on all levels?
I think it's pretty simple. I think guaranteeing healthcare to all people is the way to go. And this is what our federal representatives from Florida should be fighting for. But on the state level, we got to be real clear. We need to expand Medicaid. We need to take the Medicaid money to expand the programs. But we also got to come up with plans of our own. And I laid out some of the basis of what I want to do. It's not fully drawn out yet, but the Medicare for Florida plan, which would be available for those people, because there are a lot of people who are stuck. They're in the middle class, but they don't have a lot of money, and they don't have,
they ain't poor enough. They make $5 more than they should in order for them to get like some sort of public service.
So they get excluded. And I think we need to raise the income level for people to qualify. It's the first thing. I think I forget the exact number it is. I might be wrong. I don't want to throw a number out there. But we need to definitely increase that income level. So hey, if instead of if you're 30,000 or less, let's increase that to 50,000. Let's cover more people, and let's give some wiggle room in there. Okay, if you're making, I can come up with a formula. If you're making I don't know, just 2% more than that, then you can still qualify. Something where we still allow people to actually get in a program, even if they make a little bit more than the limit. Because right now, what we have now is a penny more than you left out on your own.
You left out, yeah. And a lot of people are gambling with their health, just praying every day that nothing crazy happens. Because if it does, they're uninsured, right? There are a lot of people that can't afford to even get insurance at work, and that's another thing too. So you get these these jobs, the employers will cover you, but they won't cover your family, right? And if they will, they'll say, no, you can get insurance for them, but the amounts are still so high that it's almost like you're going to work just to pay for health insurance. So I'm glad that you want to take that on, because it's a real struggle. I don't even want to tell you how much money I used to pay for like health insurance, because it's just crazy, right? And but I was actually happy to get it, just because I fell into that pre-existing condition. But then my pre-existing condition was that I had a high-risk pregnancy, and when I was trying to get a policy, they were excluding maternity anyway. So I'm like, so you're gonna say I have a pre-existing condition, but the condition that was pre-existing, you're not gonna cover it even if I did try to have like another kid or something. So what is the problem? But I couldn't get insured. They're like, no, sorry, find a company, go get a job. So luckily I have an office, so I was able to get it through my office, but it was expensive, and not everybody can do that, right? It's just not everybody can do that.
You know, that's going to be a big issue in the next 2 years, is the pre-existing conditions. So what happens to all those people who got sick with COVID? That's going to be a pre-existing condition. And now these healthcare companies can come in and say, you know what, you had COVID, we don't want to cover you. You're at high risk. You're at high risk to get sick again, or maybe to get lung damage or cancer or something. We don't want to cover you now. And I don't see anybody talking about that at all. And I'm just sitting here saying, hey, look, we have an issue. You see what they're doing, pre-existing conditions. Now, in a year from now, when, maybe it's a couple million, 15, 20 million, who knows how high that number is, they'll be excluded from health insurance because they had a pre-existing condition with COVID. And how many of those people maybe have the Affordable Care Act, who have Obamacare, or how many of those people have Medicaid, or private insurance plans, not Medicaid, and they can't get these programs. It's just, then we see what the Trump administration recently did with trying to get the pre-existing conditions clause struck out of Obamacare. That's going to affect a lot of people in the long run. And it's like, we have to be smarter than this.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely need to be smarter about it. And I don't think people even realize or even thought about what it is that you just said, that anyone that had a positive COVID test is going to be someone that has a pre-existing condition, because we still don't know what COVID is did to you, or is it going to do to you in the future, right? Like, is it something that's going to lay dormant and all of a sudden something else is going to happen moving forward? We don't know. So you're absolutely right. And I think the insurance companies, at the end of the day, they are really about making their money, and they may not want to take the risk of like insuring someone and they don't know, how good or bad that's going to turn out.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's going to be a big issue. And, I'm keeping that on my watch list as something, maybe opportunities to legislate. And we don't know the potential impacts of that yet, but we have to really go with what the science is saying and try to get ahead of it. We react instead of being proactive, instead of trying to prevent, instead of trying to get ahead of things. We need to get ahead of it. We need to think about these long-term, have bills already drawn up. Get to the drawing table, be ready. So if something like this, if we find out this is going to have a bigger impact on people and insurance companies are going to act in a specific way, which they probably will, then we need to be ready to introduce those bills, get them through the committees, get them through the entire process to help as many people as possible, not have their health insurance stolen away from them.
Right. And hopefully everybody buys in, because this isn't only a Democratic problem. This is like a everybody problem, right? So it's affected everybody across the board, from rich to poor. I'm like a really big NBA fan, and I know that they're trying to find a way to go back and start playing at the end of the month. And, they're testing everybody. And, we're, like Russell Westbrook just tested positive, and Harrison Barnes. And I'm just like, you would think that like this person has access, you know what I mean? Like, what were they doing that they go and get COVID? So it's really not discriminating, and it's something that's affecting like a lot of people. So we definitely have to, get ready to see and to protect those who, like you said, that can't get insurance in that aspect. So one of the things that a lot of the young people like to deal with, and that's like front of mind for all of you guys, are like is climate change, right? I'm somewhat familiar with it, but you guys, you guys can like give me a lesson on it. So talk about what it is you want to do, like how you plan on protecting the environment. Is that something that you think is important for the people in your district?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the issue, one of the issues I'm the most comfortable with, because I spent extensive time both out in the field working on this issue, studying this issue extensively to come up with some policy proposals. And I'm glad to also have the endorsement of several environmental groups of Sunrise Movement here in Broward, the support of votewater.org, which is with Bull Sugar, and as of today, the support of Everglades Trust, which is doing some incredible work. So climate change is a multi-layered issue. A lot of people, when they think of climate change, they think of, just sea level rise, which is important. In South Florida, sea level rise is a next generation, and not even a next generation, it's an issue affecting us now. Right. With the way saltwater intrusion is going to affect. People think, oh, well, we're going to drown. It means the sea rise. It's a lot less dramatic, but a lot more dramatic than that at the same time. So we might not all drown in like 5 years, but what will start happening is the sea levels will be rising. And what we'll see that saltwater intrusion in our freshwater aquifers, like the Biscayne aquifer, and some of the other aquifers where we get our drinking water supply. So then now when that saltwater is in our aquifers, that drinking water, that one aquifer alone supplies drinking water to over 8 million people in South Florida, all of us. So if we don't start dealing with climate change, we're going to be our drinking water supply is not going to be safe and reliable in the long term. So it's a big issue, and we have to be willing to tackle all of the layers. I don't know why this person is continuously calling me at the same time, but so we have to tackle all of the layers. So sea level rise is one part of climate change. There's other parts. The other parts of climate change is heat waves, the ice melting in the Arctic, waterways, pollution affecting our waterways, which isn't just affecting us in terms of drinking water. It's affecting our water. It's affecting our natural ecosystems. It's affecting our wetlands, the Everglades. And there's so many layers to this. It's also a racial and economic justice issue as well when we think about this, with the way it's affecting Black and Brown communities and unprecedented amounts and levels. This affects air quality. It affects the food we eat. It affects our healthcare system as well. People think of climate change just as an environmental thing. It affects every single layer of our lives politically as well. And we gotta take it seriously now, because we think healthcare is bad. Wait until people start getting, people already are, but getting sick and crazy numbers because of the air quality, because of the food quality, because of the pollution in the water, because of issues we should have been addressing a long time ago. We need people, I think this next decade is important for us to get young people like myself in office, because, we care about this issue not because, it's just an issue to care about and it's important, because it also affects us too in the long term. And a lot of the politicians in there, they're not going to be here in 20 years, unfortunately, so they're not going to really see this play out in the long run. But addressing climate change is multi-layered. It addresses water, the air quality, the food quality, economic justice aspects of this, including the fact that most of the people in our state live in coastal communities and coastal areas. And here's the biggest point of that, and how this ties into the current pandemic. And this is somebody who studied both history and public health at the same time. Here's how it ties into the pandemic. Now we're in hurricane season. So now we have a pandemic where all these people are sick. Now we're in hurricane season. So what happens if we get a Category 5 hurricane that hits us and we still have the pandemic going on? How do we prevent the spread of this pandemic? How do we get people, make sure people have shelters and homes and food and everything they need to stay home while there's a hurricane at the same time? Right. Nobody's talking about that. Although that is the next generation issue we need to talk about.
Right, because I remember there was a couple times where there were some hurricanes and people had to, because I know some people who live in homes that like in trailers, or they live like close to the water. I have a friend that lives on a houseboat in the Keys. You can't stay there, right? And so they used to open up the school gymnasiums for people to go and stay while there's a hurricane. How you gonna do that when you're worried about coronavirus and you need to social distance, right? So it's definitely something that we need to consider, and we're in the beginning of it. We got another 4.5 months of hurricane season, so a lot happening. 2020 is just like it's a lot happening.
Yeah, none of us really expected all of that, and that's the one part of it. But luckily for us, there's a lot of solutions to address this. Long-term planning, and also really bold and progressive ideas too is what's going to really help us in the long run as well. We got to transition, a just transition away from fossil fuel energy. We need to move to clean energy. Now, some people, we can argue all day, all long about what that's going to look like. So people can say, I like solar, I like nuclear, I like wind energy, I like all of this. And we can argue all day, all long about which one is the best. Although I think it should be multi-layered, I think we definitely got to get away from fossil fuels as soon as possible. And then we can argue about the rest later. And that's why I support the Green New Deal. And I'm going to be unveiling something later along with several other candidates about the Green New Deal, either later this week or next week. We need a Green New Deal in the state of Florida. And what the Green New Deal is a plan both to transition us away from fossil fuel energy, but also talk about the economics in this as well, and justice as well. The 2020 is the decade of the Green New Deal, and we mean that in all intents and purposes.
Right. You said something about the food quality, right? That we have to worry about the food quality. Does that have something to do with the soil? Is that what's going to affect the food quality? Or is it just that the deregulation and the types of things that they're allowed to put in our food right now? Is it a combination of the other?
It's a combination of all of it. It's a deregulation, which we're seeing everything down from the FDA, the EPA, with the way the right-wing lobby is trying, the food lobby, the meat lobby is trying to completely deregulate all aspects of this. But it's also the soil, it's also the air quality, but it's also the animals themselves. The animals get sick as well, and they will get sick from climate change as well, from air quality, from all types of new diseases, and they get sick, and we don't know, and we go cook that animal and we eat it, then we end up getting sick.
We don't kill the germs when we cook it.
And then we just don't know, because what we're facing is a new generation of diseases and the rise of old diseases now that this ice is going to end up melting. And I've been the only person talking about we need to start preparing for the rise of new infectious airborne diseases that are going to come out of nowhere due to climate change, because the ice is melting, our planet is getting warmer, the atmosphere is getting warmer, and we're going to see a rise of new diseases, infectious diseases, specifically airborne and waterborne. And we need to prepare for how we're going to deal with that. We need to prepare not just for how we're going to deal with that, but we also need to prepare for how we're going to get ahead of that, how we're going to filter our water, which is why I said that if elected, I will be in support of upgrading our water treatment plant, our 5-ash water treatment facility, so that we can get ahead of this. And we need to start looking at the new technology as well, because these are new generation issues that people they want to wait until it happens. And I'm saying, look, guys, we might got 5 more years before this start happening. We need to get ahead of it.
Exactly. And we could have gotten a little bit ahead of this COVID pandemic too, had we been more forward thinking, as opposed to trying to react to something that's like this, insidious, right? So like, there were people in place to study this, to kind of tell us what we need to do to at least kind of slow it down and not have like over 130,000 people dead in a matter of like 3 or 4 months. So we definitely do need to think ahead. One of the other things I heard, you said you got an endorsement from something with sugar. I'm sure I suspect it's not big sugar, but I know you said you got some endorsement from somebody. And I know when we're talking about water quality, one of the problems with water quality is they deregulated. They allowed big sugar to run off whatever into the water, and then we ended up with a problem with red algae, blue algae, green algae, all of these different things as a result of like big sugar. What, if anything, you can do to kind of address that issue to protect the water in South Florida?
Yeah, definitely. So I have the support of Vote Water, which is with bull sugar, and they're an anti-bit sugar group.
Okay.
So a lot of people got to admit stuff about, they're like, bit sugar. I'm like, no.
What you doing?
I had to think about changing that on my website too, so people didn't get confused.
Yeah, because that's not progressive.
Absolutely not. What bit sugar is essentially doing, and it's not just bit sugar, it's utilities and industry and agriculture, like FPL, like other groups, including agricultural groups that think that they own the water and they own all of the land in the state.
My light bill has doubled since COVID happened. Like, what's FPL doing? They know we're not working. Like, can they help us out a little bit? Like, what's happening?
They certainly poisoning the water. What they're doing is they think that they own the water and they can use it however they want. And one of the things FPL tried to do, I think just last year, was they tried to inject their wastewater under our freshwater aquifer down in Miami. They tried to literally inject that under the Biscayne aquifer. Now, to remind you, Biscayne aquifer provides water to over 8 million people in both Palm Beach, Broward, Dade, and Monroe County, and maybe a few others, and I think the Keys as well. And essentially what they were saying is, we don't care that this is the drinking water supply. We think this is safe. We're going to inject this wastewater under the freshwater aquifer that provides water to people. Now, imagine if that leaked into our water source. It will have catastrophic consequences for all of us, for our drinking water and for our environment, as well as our state. We live on porous limestone. Our state is sitting on porous limestone. And what we are facing with when we're going to talk about acid rain and all of these next generation things that we're going to be faced with at the same time. But the biggest challenge is making sure that these industries know that they don't own the water, and that, okay, we're fine. We get that you want to operate a business. We get that it's important that we have energy for all of the consumers, all of our residents, and food and all of those good things, and sugar. We all like sugar. But at the same time, we do not want we don't want to poison our water. And that's on the industry side. What Bit Sugar is doing is their toxic runoff. And what we're seeing as a result of that is, and we're in that season again, with red tide, blue-green algae in our waters, where it isn't just because the water looks bad. A lot of people say, oh, this is not serious. It just makes the water look bad. It's killing fish.
Yeah, it's killing animals.
And as a result of killing fish, it's also devastating communities that rely on fishing. So there are people who live around Lake Okeechobee, who've lived there for decades, whose family are based out of that area, and who have businesses. And they go out, they're fishermen, they go out catch fish, they go sell that fish, they feed their families with that fish. That's their job. And that's what they do for a living. And as a result of what Bit Sugar is doing, they can't do that. So they're forced to either move away, be devastated economically, be devastated financially, because an industry in our state thinks it's okay to do what they want to do. And they spend a lot of money on politicians in our state who they can push around and try to stop any regulation of what they're doing. So, I've said it loud and clear to any company, including Bit Sugar, that if you can't respect our state's waterways, if you can't respect our water, then go find another state. There are a lot of other companies that probably want to come to Florida for our workforce and our consumers. And look, if you don't want to listen, we need to find ways to look at ways to do things like eminent domain. We need to kick you out of the state. Some people said that's a little step too far, but maybe we could do that if it gets too out of control. Go find another state to pollute. We don't want you here. But if you're going to be here and you're going to
behave, right? We should just, get them to behave and, make them pay if they don't, So
large fines. And I proposed one of the largest fines ever on these institutions, and it will probably never pass. And I even thought it was a little really strict. I said for every, I forget exactly how I measured this, but I said fines of about $5 million. And then I changed my mind and said about 5% of their revenue every season. And that increases by 2%. So 5% of your revenue goes to the state every single season so that we can clean up what you're doing. And then you can help us clean up in that process, but we get paid back for that. So 5% of U.S. sugar companies' revenue. If we did that and we took 5% of their money, they would be like, okay, you know what? We need to get our act together.
And I'm glad you said revenue and not profit. I'm glad you made, that, because there is a difference, right? There is a big difference. So I'm glad you said revenue, not profit. Because they be like, we ain't make no money, so you can't get none of the profits. But definitely the revenue is like, well, we can calculate that this is how much money you collected, and now you sort out how to pay everybody else, and your profit line is your business, right? So yeah, I'm glad you it's revenue and not profit. And people think it's the same thing, but there's a very big difference.
Really big distinction. And if I'm Bit Sugar, you say 5% of my profits, I don't care. Take it. 5% of my revenue, I don't know about that.
That's a whole different conversation. You can't. I don't know if you can fudge the books that much, but that profit margin, like that line, that's another thing. They can do something about that. One of the other things that I know, and so I mean, like we definitely could talk environment for forever, because it's just so much involved in it, and and they think that it's not a big deal, but we're seeing the effect of it. I mean, it's just like it's like 100 degrees. It feels like 100 degrees. It doesn't say it's 100 degrees, but it just feels like it's been like 100 degrees every day for like the last 4 months. So yeah, so it's definitely something going on. Even if people can't put their finger on what it is, you can just definitely feel the difference. So I know you want to do more for the people of your district. This thing about like $15 minimum wage, is that something that a rep can try to get for the people in their area? Like, how would we get something like that passed in the state of Florida?
So I support it, number one. And It's not something I said I'll introduce a bill on because we only get 6 spots to introduce legislation per session. So I can't commit to introducing that bill like my first session because I kind of already have a bunch of commitments. But if that bill was to get in the legislature, I would co-sponsor and I would fight as hard to get it passed. Now, I don't really think it's going to pass the legislature anytime soon, or as long as Republicans control the legislature. But what I think we can do is a lot of municipalities, both city and county, can pass their own $15 an hour ordinances. Now, the big problem with that is that what ends up happening is the state preempts. They end up preempting what these local municipalities are doing. So pretty much they can only do that for the public sector. So Broward County can only say, you know what, you need to pay your employees $15 an hour. They can only pay their own employees $15 an hour in any public sector. Or outside of the public sector, they can say to anybody that they're contracting with that's doing work with them, builders, contractors, anyone, you need to pay your employees $15 an hour to get a contract from us. So we can do that. But we can't tell any other businesses that are not doing any business with the county themselves or not owned by the county, pay your employees $15 an hour. I mean, we can, but what will end up happening is it will go before the House and the Senate, and then they say no and shoot it down. So we have to be careful. It's going to be a long-term fight. It's why we need Democrats to take back the legislature and the governor's mansion so that we can get something like that passed. Because once it's passed, no one's going to go in and say, you know what, let's lower the minimum wage for $15.
No, the people who working out won't have it. They'll be like, we're not doing that. Right. So that once it's in, it's in. Yeah, definitely. So that's definitely something that we want to do for workers. Another so I know that you have. I'm familiar with the fact that reps have 6 bills that they want to introduce, and you said you already have 6 in mind. What are the issues and what are the types of bills that you want to introduce? If you win your seat.
I got about 3 out of 4. About 3 out of 6, maybe 4 already in mind, and then I left like 2 or 3 spots open. So after I'm elected, I can hold town halls and ask my constituents what they think the other 3 should be, just so I can be responsive. But there are certain promises I made on the campaign trail that I think are really important to keep with both my brand, who I am, and the things I think are so important. The first one is banning fracking. Fracking is pollution. It's not a good practice, offshore oil drilling included. And although the governor is Republican, the governor has said, both on the campaign trail when he was running and while in office, that he will support a ban on fracking. Now, if he's serious about that and not lying, then I will be introducing that bill, and I want to see how serious he is. That will be the first bill I introduce if elected to the House, is a bill to ban fracking in the state of Florida, including offshore oil drilling as well. Now, there are some things that have already been done, but I think it's time to close the deal on this. And this will be bipartisan legislation that I think the governor will sign if he's serious about his commitment to the environment. They will test that with this bill. But there are other things, including land acquisition as well, land conservation. And other things environmentally, I think should be either included in that bill or in a separate bill to take that on. So that's one of the bills I think is one of the bills could probably even be split into 2 that I think is extremely important environmental legislation.
And I have to tell you that I live in a house that shakes every other day or like every day, right? And I didn't know what it was until like last summer. I went to a legislative wrap up, and Cindy Polo and a couple other people were there, and they were talking about it. And I'm like, you know what? I used to tell people that my house shook like every day around like 11, something like that. And they said, no, you're crazy. I'm like, no, my house really does shake. And she said, yes, that's because they're doing all this fracking and blasting or whatever. Because I live out west. So like, I feel the effects of it. And I'm like, is it okay for my house to shake? I'm sure eventually like it's probably not okay. And maybe there's like some cracks in the foundation or something that I don't know about. But I'm definitely one of those people that will be like, yes, do it, because I feel the effects of it. I feel the effects of it.
Right. And it's polluting the water. It's also water pollution that's and there's waste fracking water as well that they're trying to inject into the ground as well. So there's just so many whole layers to the fracking side of it. And I mean, that's just one of the bills. There's so many other bills I'm thinking about that I have on the mind. But the other thing outside of bills that I want to introduce if I'm in the legislature is appropriations is important, because as a representative, your job isn't just to pass bills. It's also to bring money back to your district, which is important. And I have a number of projects that I want to do. I know the incumbent has been in the seat and hasn't passed much legislation since he's been there for 6 years, to be honest. I don't know what he was doing. We paid hundreds of thousands, over $100,000 for him to sit there for 6 years and haven't been able to do much. And, you know, part of that is his blame. Part of that is not, because Republicans do control the legislature. But there are things you can do as a representative, being more out there in the public, doing more things for the community, as well as appropriations. And the governor has just about vetoed almost every Democratic appropriation. And he left some things in there. But I think there are certain things like rebuilding our wastewater plants, our water treatment plants, our sewer systems is important. Also, infrastructure projects. Fort Lauderdale, you probably heard about Fort Lauderdale.
But they're they're expanding the airport. They're building up, making I-595 bigger. So isn't that part of infrastructure? It's like, you know, giving us all these highways and byways and toll things, and you know, it's the
wrong thing for them to be looking at.
Like some construction going on the roads.
It's the wrong type of development.
Okay.
I told them, what we need to do is we need smart development. And smart development is looking towards the future and looking towards the problems that we're actually facing. There's solutions. Let's just make everything bigger. Let's build more condos, more buildings. And while some of that is good in a way, there are things that we need to look at that may be a little bit different. And some of the things is we have a water crisis. So what we need to do is we need to dig in that ground and replace those pipes that have been there for 60, 70, 80 years. Those water pipes, they're breaking. We need to deal with the sewer lines that are breaking as well and seeping literal human waste into the streets and people's yards. We need to deal with the water quality in Wilton Manors. We need to deal with water quality in all of these different places. The other part of infrastructure is our power grid. And if we're really going to lead the carbon neutral future that we're trying to have, we need to rebuild our power grid. And that looks like many different things. So infrastructure is a mixture of everything. Infrastructure there's the physical infrastructure, there's also the economic engine as well. We are a tourist-based economy. And as a tourist-based economy, we got to keep people coming in. And the best way to keep people coming in is you want to keep things as affordable as possible for people. You want to put more people to work. And you want to have smart development in places where, like, for example, I've proposed there's a lot of places that don't need to be developed, but there's a lot of empty lots in places where that's not developed. Build affordable housing there. Build a new condo to increase the values of certain things, but also to lower the property values or to lower the other houses and make it more affordable for other people. That's in turn, you create more jobs, people that live in those communities, work in those communities at the same time. That's more tax revenue for us to do more of the things we need to do, increase standard of living. Because right now what we have, and one of the issues that we faced during COVID was a lot of people went out of work. And because a lot of people went out of work and we had a big budget deficit we're going to be facing, is that a lot of municipal governments don't have a lot of revenue coming in right now, because you can't just tax people if they're not working. So they don't have revenue to do certain things. That's going to be a big problem in the next fiscal year. So we need to look at how we're going to address that so that we can do infrastructure projects. But more, smart development and so many other things help, because then in turn we get more revenue that we can use for different projects that we can fix infrastructure, roads, highways, bridges, power grids, water systems, sewer lines, water treatment plants, garbage pickup, which I think garbage and recycling should be, daily instead of just twice a week.
Yeah, twice a week. Other things. And recycle once. They only pick up the recycle like once a week.
Once a week.
Yeah. Yeah, so they only get that like once a week. Okay, so what if I'm just some regular, because you said you cover the area of like Fort Lauderdale, right? Is that all of Fort Lauderdale's? And all of Fort Lauderdale, or just parts of Fort Lauderdale? Because Fort Lauderdale, some of it is fancy and some of it is just kind of real regular, right? So are you covering all of Fort Lauderdale? Because I have like a regular people question, but I need to know if you're covering that neighborhood too.
So I cover most of Fort Lauderdale. I cover both downtown Fort Lauderdale, everything pretty much west of US 1, downtown Fort Lauderdale. I cover most of Wilton Manors, everything west of, I want to say Dixie Highway. I cover like half of Lauderhill, everything pretty much east of the Turnpike. I cover East Plantation, which is everything east of, east of the Turnpike as well. Oh no, east of University. And Oakland Park is kind of hard to draw out. So it's really central Broward. Everything pretty much, you go out a little bit west towards the mall, towards US 1, towards like commercial towards 595 pretty much.
Okay, so what if you have one of those regular people that live in Fort Lauderdale? There's like, sir, it's not like you talking about a whole bunch of fancy stuff, right? You talking about like waterways, aquifers, all of this kind of stuff about algae. I don't know nothing about that. How is that gonna affect my everyday living? Tell me what you gonna do to make my little regular life better, right?
Right.
All of this,
Yeah.
in some theoretical space. In reality, it does affect. But most folks they just trying to go to work every day, want to make sure they have a job, want to make sure they got a place to stay. Like, tell us what's the stuff you're about to do for like just regular old people that just need some help.
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing is all of these issues do affect people, even if they don't think about it the way I do. They, it's sometimes these are like big things that are like people don't want to think about it. But when people turn on that water faucet in the kitchen, that water's coming from somewhere. Mm-hmm. And that water goes through a whole process to make sure it's clean. So when they drink it, when they turn that water on, when they shower, it's not poison coming out of there.
And it's not brown.
It's not brown and yellow. And that there's people that make sure that trash is picked up. Otherwise, it will fall apart and we'll just have trash everywhere. And that sucks kind of right now. So it's a lot of things, but there's a lot. And I say one of the big things is that a lot of businesses were forced to close in the district. Due to COVID. A lot of restaurants that were open for 40, 50 years, mom and pop shops, black-owned businesses that were closed in the district as well. What I think the best thing we need to do is, one of the things we need to do is we're going to need the economic growth. So we're going to need to support the really small businesses in the district, the barber shops, we got the ice cream trucks out there. They still running. We got people out there doing a lot. So, when people think about small business, they think of the more corporate side of it. They're not really thinking of, okay, well, we gotta think about those small businesses out there getting left out at the same time. But other things I think will be important in the long run and help people in their everyday lives is going to be education, our education system, and it's going to be outside of the education is going to be employment is going to be big. So two things, and these things tie in. Education, we need more funding for our teachers. We need more funding for our public education systems so that they have the tools for the children. But in reality, the other thing is, how do we make that come to fruition? And the answer to that is, we send our kids to school, they get the high school, and then we prepare them for college. And the big issue is that we're not preparing these kids for jobs instead of college. So much focus on let's make them take a test and send them to school. Instead of maybe college ain't for everybody, really. It's not it shouldn't be the dream. The dream should be getting these kids jobs so they can support their families and start families. And when I joined this race, one of the first things I did was I went and I visited a lot of places. I visited the airport, which is the biggest economic engine in our pretty much in our community, pretty much bordering my district, the airport. And what it does is it brings in billions of dollars in revenue, along with our seaport, trade, so much more, and it keeps that tourist-based economy going. So when I was there, a lot of the workers were telling me, they're old, they want to retire, but there's no young people coming in to take these jobs. What we see us going out of state recruiting people, out of the county recruiting people to work these jobs. They need welders, they need all of these people to do this, that. Why don't we go and pick some of these kids off the street and give them jobs, give them trades, educate them, train them. They don't, forget college. They'll put you in a program for 9 weeks, for 3 months, whatever it is, a year maybe, and you can be a firefighter. You can go be something with healthcare, or let's put you through a trade program and let's pick you up and let's go take you to the airport and get you a job there, welding or doing something. Those are good paying union jobs and they need the help. So one of the things I want to do as a state representative is find our especially at-risk youth of color, and instead of throwing these kids in jails, don't put them in no jail. Let's go get them a nice job. Let's go get them a trade so that they can be successful. A lot of times crime is because people lack opportunities. So what we need is let's give people opportunities and a leg up. And the best way of doing that is let's get people jobs. People need jobs right now. And that's what they need the most right now, is especially with this pandemic, people want to go back to work, and some people are not going to be able to go back to work. Right. So we need a strong public service program to make that happen.
Yeah, definitely. And your answer was actually really good, because one of the things that we have to do is like just educate people and inform them, right? Because they might, like you said, they might think like these issues don't matter, but you can show them how it matters, right? Like, you do need to be concerned about the water. You do need to be concerned about the air. You need to be concerned about what these big companies are doing to your food and your food supply, whatever. So it may sound like it's something that's not important to you, but it is important to you, because we do. we do expect regular, clear water to come out of that sink, right? And we want it to smell all right too, right? So
and the jobs too. It's another argument for why we need those jobs in a district too. Like as a state representative, I can't just go to Tallahassee. I need to be trying to bring jobs to this district. People want to work. And when they try to work, everywhere saying, you got 4 years experience, you got 10 years experience. It's like, I'm just out of college. I need a job.
Right. Yes, I had that struggle too. I know the feeling, right? They was like, but you have no experience. I'm like, yes, I'm like 21. Like, where am I going to get experience from? Like, I just got out of high school like 4 years ago or whatever, and I was in college.
I still get that. I still get that when I'm applying for jobs. Like, I give them my resume, and although I did like so much, they're like, you're only 21. Like, well, you need 4 years experience. I'm like, how am I getting experience and nobody hired at the same time? Even with I claim this as the biggest job interview is running for office, where I got to get the majority of votes. I got to get tens of thousands of people to say, send him to Tallahassee. And even then, people are like, no experience. Like, how do I get the experience to office if you don't sit in the office? Like,
yeah, so that was the thing that I was going to ask you about, because it is, that you are young and you're trying to take on a big task, right? Why do you think you're the most ready to take on such a big task?
A lot of things, a lot of reasons. The first reason is lived experience. And when people talk about experience, they, stories like mine are never talked about. People, when they talk about experience, they want someone who has a big bank account, who grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth, someone who have nice fancy titles and jobs, who worked at a Fortune 500 company, who's a lawyer, who's a white male, or if they're a black male, they just got a lot of money and connection and well connected.
Don't get my lawyers. I'm a lawyer. I'm good. I'm good people. Just kidding.
Yeah, you're good. But people expect those things. They don't, when they see somebody, they don't expect it to be a young person because they don't think they have experience. But in reality, things are a lot harder today than they really are. Than they're really supposed to be for kids. Kids are growing up a lot faster than they should be because they're being thrown out in the world. Now you have children out who are working to take care of their family, helping their parents work. The mom goes to work, the dad goes to work, the child skips school and go to work. You don't have any kids I don't see out there, hustling instead of being in school because things are really hard. And I have lived experience in that. I've been homeless. I've lived out on the street. I've lived, sometime we were homeless. We lived in the back of a van in a storage facility. I'd wake up sometime 5 a.m. and we'd go to the beach before the sun came out and we'd shower at the little beach showers. And I dry off and I go to school every day like nothing happened. Still going to school, still keeping my eyes open, still trying to graduate, still doing everything. I did what I was supposed to do when a lot of people can't get through those things. We've been homeless. I've been through those things. I've been forced to work as a young person. It's a lot of lived experience things I can't say here, and I won't say here. Y'all might find the book when it comes out. But it's just a lot of things a lot of lived experience that people don't expect or don't see when they see a young person with clear eyes trying to do these things. And it's a credible task. But the other reason is the issues that we're seeing now is going to affect my generation. And I would be wrong. One of the things people say today is these kids these days, they're not doing anything. They don't vote. They don't run. They don't do this. They don't do that. And then when we run, people get upset and mad about it. And I'm saying I would love nothing more than to be a 21-year-old and go party and go to the club and just enjoy college years, right? But I can't because there's too many issues facing our community and our country right now that's affecting my future, that's going to affect our generation's future. Climate change is just only one of them, but there are others. Healthcare, employment, these issues that we're facing now, if we don't start dealing with them now in 10, 15, 20 years, they're going to be worse than they've ever been before. And we're going to be left with a country that is so broken and so destroyed, it will be impossible to have a high standard of living and to live. And it's just sad and it's just unfortunate. So I said, you know what? I'm going to put my youth on hold and I'm going to go run for office and try to fix this so that those people that come behind me can have a future that they can believe in. They can have a future with opportunity. They can have a future where they don't have to be 21 and think about running, or maybe they do, but or not.
Right.
But I think I'm the best person and the most ready person to take on this task because I've been fighting the same fight, but at the same time, lived experience, and the issues are literally affecting me. And if you want somebody to go out there and fight for you, you're going to send a person who's most impacted by that issue. If you want somebody to go out there and win a fight, it's going to be somebody that's passionate about it because it's
skin in the game and that can relate to that experience. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Right. Yeah, because from the conversation that we had, I mean, a lot of the things you said, you're definitely sound like you're ready. And you know, and it's like, and if you're feeling the impact of all of this, like, you know, you understand it, right? Because sometimes we do, and I'm not suggesting that, you know, any of your opponents are disconnected or they can't relate to that experience, because maybe they can, but oftentimes, you know, you really want somebody who's impacted by all of this. And you know how every time, you know, people are like, oh, this election is the most important. Like, this one really is important. Like, I remember the first time I had to deal with the health insurance issue, and that was one of the things that the candidates were talking about. I'm like, I have to vote for this person because I really know what it's like to like not have health insurance, right? Because it was something that I was dealing with like in that moment, and I really, really understood it. And you know, and it seemed like it continues to be an issue. So it was definitely like a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure there's some hopefully, you know, you got to at least, you know, let the people know like what your platform is, what it is that you want to do for the people in your district. So tell them how they can get in touch with you, how they can donate to your campaign, how they can volunteer if they support and believe in the vision that you have for District 94.
Absolutely. So to get in touch with me, I am on both social media and I have a website. My website is ElijahManley.com, and I'm on Twitter at Elijah Manley. Yeah, that's correct. Instagram at Real Elijah Manley, and on Facebook just Elijah Manley. You guys can find me on here.
So you said Elijah Manley on Twitter and yes, Real Elijah Manley on Instagram, and just Elijah Manley on Facebook.
On Facebook. I would give you the TikTok and everything too, but not everybody into that right now. So that's a young people.
How you campaign on TikTok? I gotta go check that out just so I can see what those ads look like.
Gotta get them young voters, and they like that dancing and all of that stuff. I'm still trying to get into it. But,
okay.
That's how I can do it. And you guys can donate on AppBlue. You can do that from my website. I mean, we need all the help. I mean, money is really crucial and important. I mean, I think we got this, but the money is going to help out a lot in the long run with winning this race and doing what it is we need to do to carry this fight on.
Okay, and so they can only donate to you from your website. They because someone was here and they have like a Cash App or something. So
they can donate on the website through AppBlue, through Raise the Money. They can send a check to our thing. Technically, they can donate through. We don't have the Cash App set up for our campaign, so we don't have that option open.
So website, and they can mail a check. Yeah. So what would they mail a check if they wanted to do that?
If you do that, you can mail it to Post Office Box 1020, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33302. That address is also on the bottom of the front page of my website too.
Okay, then. All right. So you have the last word. Do your closing statement and remind the people of why it is that you're the best candidate for District 94.
Absolutely. As I said, I'm the best candidate, not just to lived experience, but I think right now we need to send somebody to Tallahassee who's going to deliver results for the district, and somebody who will get things done, because nobody is going to tell a loudmouth 21-year-old no in Tallahassee. They're going to have to listen. And I think that I'm the person for this district to deliver these results. I sat at kitchen counters with people on their couch with them. I've been on the phone, emails. I've had so many communications with people in this district who I think are ready for the new start I'm trying to give them, who are ready to hit reset and start all over again. And I'm ready for it too. And, you know, the only promise that I make to people is that I'm going to listen. I'm going to be available. And at the same time, I'm going to keep fighting every single day, because that's what I've always done.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All righty. You too.